This week in Arsenal, the Gunners traveled to the Etihad Stadium to face off against Manchester City and successfully come away with a boring nil-nil draw. I think that's about it in terms of the headlines from the week this week. We're coming back from just another pointless international break, and we went straight into probably the hardest match of the season for us, that away trip to the Etihad, and we came up against a Manchester City team that were missing some players. Excuse me. Ederson was out. John Stones was on the bench. I don't think he was ever really going to play. Um, Nathan Ake got injured a few minutes into the match. Who else? Kyle Walker was out as well. So it felt like a good opportunity for us to get something out of the game, and we did. A lot of people are a little disappointed that it wasn't a win, but we'll get into all of that, and we'll talk about what this means for the title race. We'll talk about whether or not this was bad football, and we'll highlight a key performer from the match, and just discuss how good he has been on a regular basis for the last couple seasons. So, um, welcome in to This Week in Arsenal. It is episode 50, and we're really proud to hit that milestone. Normally, we would have tried to have a guest lined up for episode 50, but just the games are coming so thick and fast, it's difficult to do that. But one day soon. Anyway, you can follow the pod on Twitter, This Week Arsenal. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications. If you're watching on, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do, leave that review. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale, and with me, as always, to discuss all things Arsenal is the man himself, Sash at LT Arsenal. Sash, how are you doing, good sir?
Well, actually, pretty good, because I thought yesterday could be a day which potentially ruins this entire week. If we lost it, then the level of motivation for the coming week is completely gone because this was a type of game that even if you don't win, don't lose it. And I think Arsenal made a significant step yesterday because if you see, we have literally dropped points or lost every single match at the Etihad since 2017. I think the last time we drew at the Etihad was when Alexis scored an equalizer. I think it was 16-17 when that happened. So since then, we have basically not even drawn that. So this is one of the worst grounds ever. And for us to go there and keep a clean sheet and prevent Man City scoring for the first time in 3 seasons was a huge step, massive step by Arsenal yesterday. And look, people will say, we should have won, we're bottling it. I don't agree with that at all. Yesterday was a really good result for Arsenal. It's one that keeps us in the run-in. And I think yesterday, if you look at all the games remaining, yesterday was the hardest match that Arsenal had, City away, right? I'm not saying that the rest of the games are games we're just going to go out there and win, but I can say for the games that we have remaining that we are superior to each of the teams that we are playing very clearly. But against City, it's quite even, and it was important we didn't lose yesterday. And now we're a couple of points behind Liverpool, which is okay, but we're really good on goal difference still. We're also ahead of City. So now I think it's sort of in our hands. I think if we win the remaining matches, we will win the league. And of course, people are saying, will Liverpool drop points? I think they will. I think Liverpool are not so convincing. Like they always find a way, and fair play to them. But I think they will stumble in a game or two, I think, till the end of the season. And I think Arsenal have a great opportunity here to go and do something special compared to last year where we lost the game in the first half. We just got absolutely opened up. We had no threat. Yesterday was so refreshing. I know many people will say it was a boring match. Even you said it was like a fest of a game, but I thought it was really engaging the match because City are a very patient side. The way they work the ball, like they can it really make the game boring for a neutral fan. But from my point of view, there's always a level of anxiety, because you're moving the ball from one side to the other. Okay, is a killer pass going to come somewhere? I'm not sure. So it was stressful for me to watch. And also, us on the break, we had a threat and we could have scored a couple of goals ourselves. So it was a really good game, I think, from a tactical point of view. I wish I could do a breakdown of that match today, but unfortunately didn't have the time. And we have another game coming thick and fast on Wednesday. But it was a fantastic game from a tactical point of view. Both the managers essentially made sure that their team's weaknesses were nullified and the team's strengths, were there for everyone to see. In Arsenal's case, it was the solidity at the back. In City's case, it was their ability to keep possession, constantly recycle the ball. I thought it was a fascinating watch, Sham. But what did you make of it? And yeah, as Emilia says over here, it was like a chess match. Absolutely. I think it was a game where it was just going to and fro. It could have gone either way. But at the end, it was a lot of foreplay from both the teams without actually the finish. So, what did you make of it, Sham?
Yeah, I do want to clarify one thing. I said for the neutral, it was objectively not the most exciting game in the world, but for me personally, um, it was nerve wracking, and there were, I was talking with someone on Twitter yesterday about this kind of thing where, we went through an era where, with all due respect to Arsene Wenger, these games we would get embarrassed, right? We sat through 8-2, 6 nils, a couple 5 nils. Um, this is the kind of game that we would have gone and tried to play pretty attacking football and not really worried what happened at our back door, and we would have gotten embarrassed. And I've come to really respect and enjoy the defensive side of the game because of how good we've gotten at it. And I enjoyed watching Saka and Odegaard, you know, press the hell out of that back line and force the ball to Gvardiol, and force it out to the left. I enjoyed watching Rice follow Kevin De Bruyne all over the pitch. I enjoyed watching Gabriel and Saliba bully probably the second best striker in the world. Um, I thought for me personally, it was quite a spectacle, and it was just a tactical masterclass between two of the three best managers in the league, right? So as I enjoyed it as a fan once the anxiety subsided and the full time whistle blew. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that went. Obviously, it could have gone better, right? You always want to go in there and win, but I'll put it to you like this: there's a lot of Liverpool fans talking right now about how they would have gone to City and proudly played their game. How many wins at the Etihad in the league does Jurgen Klopp have, Sash?
Zero, right? I think he's not won since he. No, he won. He won
No.
the first season, I think, 2015. I think Coutinho, Firmino, but that was not when Pep was the manager. That was
Yeah.
yeah. Even City were, I think, not so good in 15-16. Like they finished just fourth in the second last week. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was not a good
And
City.
how many wins at the Etihad in all competitions does Liverpool have since 2008?
One, two.
One.
Uh,
One win.
yeah.
So, it's all well and good to go out there and play your game and really take it to City, right? And really, really be bold. Um, you didn't win doing that, right? So, and the last time we tried to do that, we lost 4-1. Obviously, that's not the only reason why we lost 4-1. There were some other factors in there like injuries and just kind of a post World Cup slump in terms of our form generally. Um, but this is the hardest place in world football to go. Unfortunately, maybe you can include the Bernabeu in there, but this isn't somewhere where you should expect a team to go in there and get a win, especially if they have not done it for a very long time. So, um, I to kind of move us on to the first topic we wanted to discuss here. I don't think our original game plan was to go and just sit in our box and play a 6-3-1 out of possession, right? But City took over the game very quickly in terms of possession. I think they finished with 73% of the ball. Um, but we had to adapt to that. I think we originally just wanted to go in there and play our game, right? And get into the final third and do the cutbacks and try to win as many corners as possible and see if we can, use our prowess in set pieces to our advantage. It didn't work out like that, right? And how long have we as Arsenal fans been complaining that we don't have a plan B in games, right? Plan A didn't work very quickly, so we adapted. Plan B, just ride it out, see what we could get on the counter. Clearly, this is one of those days where City was going to dominate possession, which, is a fair bet when you play City. And I think we did a very admirable job. Um, and on top of that, I think part of the reason why City were able to control the game so much, like they did, is because we had a bunch of very disappointing performances in attack. Right, um, Gabriel Jesus, not impressive at left wing. Missed a couple important chances, I think. Leandro Trossard, who came in for him, I think missed that ball out, kind of squared to Martinelli. Although I will say, I don't think that automatically would have resulted in a goal. I think that angle is a little trickier than it looks. I think the space would have been closed down pretty quickly for Martinelli. So, um, that's not a guarantee or anything. But I think Saka also, bad game. Jorginho wasn't really that involved. Havertz, great off the ball, not so good on it. So there are a lot of things going into this, and I'm really proud of how the team adapted and managed to get something out of a game that even just last year we would have lost pretty handily. But Sash, what do you think?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that anyone who said that we just went and parked the bus clearly did not watch the game, because Arsenal, they actually pressed Man City really high in build up. We almost went man for man against City when they were building up. It was only after they beat our press did we get into this mid block. I don't even think it was a low block. Like City in the first half entered our penalty box once. If we were actually sitting back on the edge of our own box, like the way people are making out, then City would have entered the box more times. But the fact that they only entered the box once tells you that no, what we did was we got into a mid block, we cut out the passing lanes to their interior midfielders. De Bruyne, Kovacic were not seeing much of the ball, and we were forcing them to go out wide. We were happy for Guardiola and Akanji on the left and right to have free crossing situations, no problem. And even if they got a good ball into the box, Saliba and Gabriel absolutely dominated Haaland. So the game plan from Arsenal was quite clear. I'm 100% sure that Arteta would have liked us to be more dominant, a little braver, and with more decisiveness in terms of how we used the ball. That didn't happen yesterday. I thought Jorginho in the first half was a non-entity. Like the game was just passing him on the ball and off the ball. I thought Declan Rice really showed a lot of initiative in that first half at a time when some players looked a bit lost. Some had, I think, scars from what happened last year. Declan Rice was the guy who was saying that, hey, we're a new team now. Let's do this, boys. So that's what he was doing in the first half. And I really liked the way he played. And I thought there was some solid performers right throughout the 90 minutes. I thought William Saliba was really good. Gabriel also absolutely dominated Haaland yet again. I think I saw a stat that Haaland accumulated like 0.25 xg in the 3 games he played against Arsenal this season, and that's testament to how good Gabriel and Saliba have been against him. But I also thought Ben White was excellent on the ball and also off the ball. Like in that first half, I thought his runs forward looked like a main threat. He got into a couple of good like opportunities. But as you mentioned, Gabriel Jesus, who was on the end of one of them, ended up being indecisive, and that was for me frustrating because Gabriel Jesus is so talented, and sometimes I just wish, he could simplify his game a bit. He's always rushing, snapping at shots, and I'm like, look, you're 26, Gabby. At some point, you need to make that step up and be the guy that is calm, composed, shows that composure. You're the leader in this team. Okay, like 26 is not old, but in this team, you're the leader. People look up to you for composure. You need to do better from that. So that was for me a bit annoying. And also, yeah, the Trossard chance, as you touched upon in that second half. I know a lot of people are saying he should have passed to Martinelli, which I think is fair enough. But I just think that just shows you what pace can do. If Martinelli was there where Trossard was, it becomes a 1v1, and Martinelli's in 1v1. And after that, I don't know if he scores or not, but he's in 1v1. And that's the difference that extra yard of pace can make. And if
Yeah.
there's any conclusion that I want to take from not just this game, but some of the recent games as well, like Porto, when Martinelli was not available, it's that we badly need a pacey winger, someone that can do what Martinelli does, because there's no other player in our squad who can do what Martinelli does. Everyone else wants ball to feet constantly. And even if they make a run, like Trossard, for example, he's maybe not quick enough to, take a pass and just go run forward like the way Martinelli does. That burst of pace, he does not have it. So that's the area where I want Arsenal to like improve in the summer and address. And I would even look to sign a pacey wide player over a center forward now. But Sham, what do you make of it? How do you see like the rebuild in the summer? I know it's a bit of a
Mhm.
tangential point to this, but in terms of drawing in from what we saw today, how do you see this?
Yeah. Well, just one point real quick before I talk about the summer priorities. How many touches did City have in our box in the first half?
One, as I said.
Four.
Four, okay.
Four, which is still I think it's their lowest of the season, or it might be like one of their lowest ever. It was still, we kept them out of there. Um, but yeah, just to your point about the fact that this wasn't a low block. This was just
Mhm.
us, preventing them from playing their game, and that's how Arsenal City go. Or that's how the Arsenal City fixture goes, right? It's just two teams that seek to nullify each other, and that doesn't exactly make for an end to end game, but that's not something that either team ever really wants. Um, in terms of the summer, you're absolutely right. That I think has been the biggest glaring issue with our squad makeup this season, which has been if Martinelli is not on the pitch, then we don't have an outlet. We don't have a guy who stretches back lines. I think Havertz is probably the second best in the team at being able to do it, but he's still a fair way behind Martinelli in terms of just that outright blistering pace. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'll never forgive Chelsea for the absolute needless involvement that they forced with the whole Mudryk saga. We could have signed Mudryk for 60, 70 million and called it, and we could have had a guy who would have been very useful for us. And then Chelsea decided to get involved because they used Instagram to scout their players. Um, they're getting what they deserve anyway. But yeah, this summer, we have to go get someone. I think we've really hit that point where we just do not lack, or sorry, we do not have that top line pace. 3-4 months ago, I would have said I wanted Pedro Neto. I just think the pretty consistent string of injuries that he's on is very concerning for me, especially considering I think Wolves, I believe, wanted 80 million pounds. It was definitely at least 60. And just for that kind of unreliability, that's an overpay. So for me personally, I want Nico Williams. That's who I would like.
Not so
I
convinced about him yet personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a value play where he has a very affordable release clause. I don't necessarily think he's a better player than Pedro Neto, but I think he has again, great pace. I think he, has a really impressive end product ability, and he's young. I think he's 22, 23, something like that. So that's who I would get. I haven't really turned much of my attention to the summer signings at this point, but that's kind of what I've been thinking about in terms of the wide forward. But I do agree where that's almost becoming the bigger priority here in the squad. Because if you told me that we entered next season with Havertz as our main center forward, I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't be apoplectic about it either. I think Havertz is proving himself to be um, a very reliable nine there as well. So yeah,
And we
I
also
mean,
have
we'll
options. We also have Trossard, Jesus, even Martinelli can play that. So I feel like we have some players
yeah.
who can fill in at center forward, but we don't have any player, like as we were discussing, who can fill in for what Martinelli does. So I think that should be the priority. But I think it will come down to which player is available. I don't think Arsenal are going to go into the market that, oh no, this is our priority. They would just see, is a world class center forward available? Then they would go for that. But if there's no world class center forward available, and let's say someone like Rafael Leao, for example, is available, maybe they go for him. So I just think it's also about, yeah, who's available and making the best decision for the future also.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the reporting tends to indicate is that we don't really. It's not like last season where we had our eye on Rice for months before we ended up signing him. It sounds like this time around it's more of a these are the positions that we want to address. Let's see let's see what's out there and what works for us. So, and I don't mind that. I think you have very much the bulk of the squad established for what you want to do in the coming few seasons, and now it's just about filling it out, maybe adding some more ceiling talent in there, but also just finding profiles that make your team able to do a variety of things, against a variety of different opponents.
I just realized Mbappe would be so perfect for this because he can play down the middle. He solves the center forward issue. He also solves the lack of Martinelli depth issue. So, if only, man.
I mean, there's a 0.00001% chance. Although I am remembering that video where some guy said come to Arsenal to him like a few weeks ago and he started laughing because it was too cold there, apparently.
We should
Which is
start to
funny.
get like pitch heating or something so that he feels warm at the Emirates. But no, it's yeah. I think sometimes once footballers like decide that the weather's not good enough, they're just gonna stick to wherever they are. And you can't blame him for wanting to go to Madrid. Like you can't get better weather than that in Europe, I think. So fair play to him.
Yeah, it's also, it's the biggest club in the world. So, when they come knocking, I feel like Madrid has established themselves as a place where if you are one of the best players in the world, you should be trying to play there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I got done watching the Beckham documentary about at the time that Mbappe announced he was leaving PSG, or not that he announced, but it was confirmed by like David Ornstein and Romano. So that's what that made me think about. I thought about Beckham being signed there as like kind of the biggest brand in football, and then I thought about them signing Ronaldo as he began to hit his peak. So it makes sense that he would go to Madrid. But yeah, in terms of us, I just think to kind of bring it full circle, I think yesterday showed that we do have a plan A for what we want to do on the pitch, but there's just those little insufficiencies in the squad that sometimes don't allow us to do what we want to do, and that's why we have to shift to a different style of play. But I guess I'll move on to this next thing and kind of ask. A lot of people seemed upset that we didn't play more gung ho at City, that we didn't really go for it, that we didn't take the game to them. Um, and I've seen Liverpool fans talking about how they play their game, they don't play scared. I've seen Spurs fans butt into that conversation. So I just want to get your thoughts. Is that something that we should apologize for? Is that something that we should feel bad about, that the neutral didn't have a good time yesterday?
Wow. It's actually crazy for me to see this because these same fans used to mock us all these years when we lose final 6-0, 6-3 we've lost. So like any permutation and combination of like a big scoreline defeat, Arsenal have done it. And we've been mocked for it constantly by these same people who are now mocking us that we're actually going to a ground like that. And by the way, preventing City from scoring at the Etihad for the first time in 3 years, right? Which is pretty crazy to be honest. And
57 games.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say, like, people are blaming us for making the game boring. I just want to say this also another team playing. Maybe also the way City play is a bit boring. I think that's part of how Pep wants to play, you know. He wants to control the game. He wants to minimize the opposition threat by keeping the ball. And if you see how City play, everything is so calculated. If they don't find the perfect vertical passing option, they're just going to work it backwards, sideways. So it was a lot of that throughout the game. It was like a game of chess, as a person had commented. So that's just the nature of the game. And if City wanted to play against us the way Liverpool did, it would have been a thriller. Like Anfield, when we went to Anfield this season, it was a thriller of a game. We had Declan Rice 1v5. We had some crazy situations in that game. And typically,
Yeah.
Liverpool versus Arsenal always tends to be like an absolutely cracking contest. I think it's only when Arsenal and City play each other that, yeah, the game becomes a bit like this, because I don't think Arteta is like Pep in terms of how calculated he is. I think to some extent, yes, but I still see a bit of like verticality and excitement to the way Arsenal play. Sometimes we are really good at hitting teams on the transition. We can be direct. Whereas with City, I think it's more like, yeah, it's really like calm, composed, the way they move the ball about. And if you saw what happened last season, Arsenal actually tried to go toe to toe with Man City, and City basically were just killing us through long balls, you know. And look, we will
Yeah.
not speak about Rob Holding because he's won Arsenal 2 FA Cup, so let's put some respect on his name first and foremost. But having said that, I think City, they exploited us last season, and I think Arsenal learned their lesson. You can see some scars from last season. I think that's also part of the reason why at times maybe we didn't commit too many forward as well. It was all calculated. It was like, let's stay in the game. Look, we have, I think, Martinelli out to begin with, which is a huge miss. We're coming after an international break, as you mentioned. So I think the plan from Arteta was, let's stay in the game. Let's play in a smart way. Let's press them high. Let's look to pick balls off them in their build up while we can. And then let's look to hit them on the transition. We had some decent moments. But I think even Man City had some decent moments only from set pieces. So it was very even. It was not like we were sitting back and hanging on for our life. I think there's a big difference here. And that's what I was saying, that anyone who just looks at the possession stats and it's like, oh, look at Arsenal, only 25% possession, 26% possession. If you look at the XG of both the teams, it was more or less the same. So I don't really see the fuss here. I think it was an admirable performance by Arsenal. And yeah, Spurs and Liverpool fans can go and do one for all I care.
Yeah. Yesterday was Easter, right? And I think what happened here is a lot of people went to Easter Mass, and without I've been to Mass, and it's um, it's not the most exciting thing. Um, I'm a Muslim marrying into a Catholic family. That's why I've been to Mass, but I feel like a lot of people were sitting through Easter Mass yesterday, just kind of thinking to themselves, just on the other side of this, I'm gonna watch City kick Arsenal's ass, and it's gonna be so much fun, and I'm gonna ignore my family, and I'm gonna not make plans with people. And then they watch the game, and again, it's an acquired taste, that game. And we didn't lose. We didn't get embarrassed. We frustrated City, and people didn't get what they want, which is an opportunity to banter us. So they forced one. That's what this is. And it's just getting boring, really. People are starting to detach themselves from reality to continue this cause, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we owe any debt to the viewer, right? We're the away team. We're going to do what we need to do to get the result. If there's anyone who let down the viewers, the neutrals yesterday, it's City, and I personally don't agree with that either. So it is what it is. I just think that's how matchups work. Certain teams come up against each other, and the game plays out in a particular way based on what those teams like to do. Liverpool turn every game into a basketball game because that's what they want. City and Arsenal turn into, a deadlock like this, because that's how both of them play. Both teams have the philosophy of trying to control as many aspects of a football match as possible. That's what Pep and Arteta build their games around. Um, and Liverpool, I think the last several times they played Chelsea, it's been a draw. Even the last couple seasons when Chelsea have been not great. So, it is what it is. I just think it's a really silly complaint to have from people. But yeah, just want to get your thoughts on that. Moving on, right? I think the important thing to talk about here now is what this means for us entering the final quarter of the season, right? Um, we've got 9 games to go. We're 2 points behind Liverpool. I think we're 1 point behind City. Um, we definitely do not have the easiest schedule remaining compared to City and Liverpool. So, I just want to get your take here on whether the fact that we drew at City is a failure based on what we have to do now to, to make the rest of the season a successful one. Yeah, so where are you with that?
Look, you can't be 1 point off or 2 points off first going into April and speak about like failure, because we are very much in it, right? We're absolutely in it. 2 points is nothing as of now. And as I mentioned, the remaining 9 games, if you just look at Arsenal and the other team that we're playing, forget about the fact that it's like some of them are tricky away games. Forget about the fact that this is the Premier League. Forget all of this. I think Arsenal are a better football team than all the 9 teams that we're going to play. That's the first thing. Then it's a case of, can we cope with the pressure in those away games? Can we cope with the intensity of playing fixtures thick and fast, Premier League and Champions League? And then it's a case of, can we have that little bit of luck to have certain moments in some of those games which might be tight, because all 9 games are not going to be walk in the parks. I think 5 or 6 of them might be games Arsenal win absolutely convincingly. But it's in those 2 or 3 games when we, have like fine margins, we need those to go in our favor. But it's something that happens to every team that wins the league. They always get a bit of that luck somewhere. And it's a lot of factors that has to go right for Arsenal to win the league. But I can also say that it's the same for Liverpool and for Man City. It's also the same for them, that they also need a little bit of luck in those moments for them to end up winning the league. So I cannot sit here today and say that because of some draw against City, a team we have lost every single time in the last 7 years, that's the reason why we might not win the league. I think if Arsenal don't end up winning the league, we will have to see which games we drop points in these next 9 games. Or if it's a case that no, Arsenal win like 7 games out of these 9, 7 or 8 out of these 9, and still lose the title, then the games that we will have to look at are games that we played in December against West Ham at home, and then on New Year's Day against Fulham. I think those 2 games were really damaging. I think even the home draw against Fulham earlier on in the season was not so good. Away defeat to Newcastle, contentious refereeing decision, very poor performance at Stamford Bridge, where I think we should
Yep,
be beating this Chelsea side. They're 12th.
absolutely.
Like, dropping points to a side that's 12th is embarrassing. So I look at some of these, you can say, starting trouble games that we had at the start of the season. That was the big issue. And I think if we don't win the league, we will have to look at that. But still, I'm proud of this team if they go until May and they are in with a shout of winning the league. I view that as a step, because all I can ask for as a fan is for this team to go every season, go take it until May. And after that, if it's a case of 1 or 2 or 3 points, then that's football. We can deal with it. What I don't want is what happened last season, where by the middle of April, we were out of it when we were 8 points ahead of City going into April. So I don't want a capitulation. I want us to go and do what's in our control and take the next step forward, because Sham, that's what it's about, taking that next
Yep.
step forward. Last season, we were not able to compete with Man City away from home at the Etihad. We absolutely got destroyed. This season, we have not conceded a goal to them in the league. I view that in a very positive way. And I think in general, if you see how Arsenal play, we're more competitive. I feel more comfortable watching Arsenal play now against the big teams than I did last season. Does that mean we still have some things to improve upon? Absolutely. We've spoken about it. Like, yeah, we need to add a couple of players, definitely. But all I want to see is this team taking steps season after season. And, I think since the Invincibles, basically, this is the best that Arsenal have been. So let's just look to enjoy. We've not had this sort of run in of 9 games where we're like, come on, Arsenal, let's do it. We've not had that in a long time. So let's just enjoy it. Like, I much rather we be where we are right now than playing against Dundalk and Slavia Prague in the Europa League, fighting for eighth. This is much better. I can deal
Yeah.
with this chess, absolutely, no problem. But what do you make of it? How do you see the remaining 9 games, and how do you see it matching up when you look at the games City have, Liverpool have, and us? How do you see it?
Um, I think a lot of people are doing this thing where um, they they bought into the narrative, right? That a lot of outlets were putting out there before the game, where we had to beat City in order to win the league, and since we didn't, I think a lot of people are trying to emotionally divest from the title race, because now it's, now we're not in first still. Now we actually have to work for it a little bit. Um, Now there's a solid chance that we don't win the title, right? Whereas I think that would have been about the same case before. Um, there's hopium, there's copium. I think this is mopium. I think people are very purposefully calling it quits because they don't want to get hurt at the end of the season, and I just don't understand that. I got asked yesterday by a friend if I was nervous about the City game, and I I was completely honest when I said this, and I'm completely honest when I'm saying it now. I was not nervous about this game. I did not think we were going
Same
to
here.
lose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I didn't have
I
those nerves at all. Like
and
normally I would be thinking which player is going to make a mistake in which minute. And like now it wasn't like, okay, I knew we will go out there and like put in a fight, and we got exactly what we thought we would get.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I wasn't out here saying that we were going to slap City 4-0 or anything, right? I thought if we did win the game, it would be like 2-1 or 1-0 or something. But even then, what I knew for sure was that we weren't going to lose. Um so, I that's how I feel about this team now, right? And that's how I felt about the team for about 3 months. So, the way I think about it is every game, the last 9 games we have this season are all easier on paper than Manchester City away is, right? So to watch us draw away at Manchester City and then say, "Oh, that's it. We're not going to win." Right? I don't understand that. And yes, Liverpool have annoyingly found a way to win almost every game that they shouldn't have won this season. Liverpool have 26 points won from a losing position this season in the league.
Crazy, crazy.
26. I think, that's just under half of their points on the year. Um,
That's crazy.
and I don't think that's sustainable. I will die on that hill. I don't if Liverpool go behind in 9 games for the rest of the season, right? They're not going to get full points out of all 9 of them. And if they do, they deserve the Premier League, quite honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So it's just one of those things where you have to hope things go wrong for Liverpool. You have to hope that one of these days, playing fast and loose a little bit like they have catches up with them. You have to hope that the next team that takes a lead against them can actually hold it, right? But on the other side of that, I look at the fixtures that we have: Luton at home, Brighton away. Are we? I think we have Chelsea coming to the Emirates, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Chelsea at home, United away, Spurs away. That will be tricky, but I think we can do it, right? I really,
I saw a stat today on Sky Sports that in Arsenal's remaining fixtures, that we won every game last season, like all the corresponding fixtures last season, we won, barring the Old Trafford match. So I think it's a case of replicating what we did last season in these fixtures, and then going to Old Trafford and just hoping that curse stops for one season. So
Yeah.
yeah. It'll
And
be
I
interesting
think,
if United play to prevent Liverpool from winning the league, because I know United fans hate Arsenal, but I think they hate Liverpool more than Arsenal. So it'll be interesting. Like the way I remember back in the Gerrard gave his back pass to Drogba when Chelsea and United were going for the title. I think it was like 2009-10 season. It would be
yeah.
nice if that repeats.
Yeah.
I would
No, for
graciously
sure.
accept.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I have a lot of faith in this team, and I really think they can pull it off. Out of the three between us, Liverpool and City are the ones who should be the most concerned right now because they're 3 points back. Um, you don't look like you entirely agree.
Yeah, so the thing is, I think in terms of pressure, I think it's for Arsenal and Liverpool, because City are like, hey, we've been winning this league for like 4 seasons, 5 seasons, and we won the treble last season. Okay, we're 3 points behind, but we're just going to go and do it. Whereas for Arsenal and Liverpool, there's like huge pressure, because at least for Arsenal, maybe lesser than Liverpool, because I think for Arsenal, yeah, we didn't win the league for 20 years. Still have a young team, young manager. We're making the next step. Whereas for Liverpool, it's like, no, Jurgen Klopp is coming to an end, so they have to win it for him. And I don't think they're going to be as good next season without Klopp. I think definitely there will be a transition for them. So I think for them, they have to win it now. I think even Salah might end up leaving to Saudi. There's all sorts of rumors, right? So I think for them, I think they have actually the most pressure to win it.
Yeah,
Arsenal, I think some of the pressure is self-imposed from the players, because some of them seem to have a breakdown the moment like we get into a tough situation. So I hope players can also calm down. But just looking at it objectively, I think City actually will go into this saying, let's watch two of these clowns go at each other whilst we do what we always do. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, I do think that's a good point. How Liverpool have the most pressure on them because I think it's very evident that Liverpool are going to enter a rebuilding period starting next season, right? Especially since Alonso isn't on the table for them. They've started getting linked with Amorim from the Portuguese league, who I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's a needle mover the way that Jurgen Klopp is, right? So yeah, I think there is a lot of pressure there to end Klopp's tenure on a high note, but also for a lot of these guys who maybe don't see their future at Liverpool start after this summer, just leaving with something. So yeah, no, I think that's a good point. But I'm really happy with where this team is, and like you said, if we don't win the league, the drawing away at City is not the result I'm getting upset about, right? Like you said, it's Fulham. We took 1 point, no, 2 points. We took 2 points off of Fulham this season.
1 point. We
Oh, we
lost away.
lost to Fulham. We took 1 point off Fulham this season. That's awful, right? We lost to West Ham. We didn't beat Chelsea. We blew that lead against Spurs. There's a lot of other results before that were really disappointing and that were better than. So yeah, the City result is not one that I'm looking back on with regret, and we'll see what happens. But I believe in this team, and this team has shown us that they're capable of doing it, and I think that's half the battle. In terms of capability, you and I want to highlight one player, real, and this guy, man, I was thinking about it before we started the pod. We were talking about how he helped lock down Erling Haaland in 3 games this season, held him to an xG total over those 3 games of 0.28 xG. And I was thinking about it, and I realized this guy also has a history of locking down the other best striker in the world, Harry Kane, right? There's that comp floating around of him just winning every single aerial duel against him and bullying him and knocking him to the ground. Um, And I'm talking about Gabriel, obviously, right? And I think one of the things that's made this season very special is that Gabriel is finally starting to get his flowers. Maybe not in a widespread sort of way, but definitely within the Arsenal community. He's starting to get the recognition for just what an elite center back he is. And yeah, it's just been really impressive to watch him blossom. I think he's been the better of our two center backs over the course of this season. With all due respect to William Saliba, who I think is absolutely phenomenal as well, but Gabriel, I think, um, has been the more reliable of the two. I think he's in line for player of the season, if we're being quite honest. It's definitely between him and Rice, I would say, at this point. Maybe Martin Odegaard has an outside shot. Um, so, I just want to turn this over to you and just kind of let you wax poetic for a second about just what an excellent player Gabriel has been this season and, frankly, over the course of his Arsenal career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right from the time he joined Arsenal on his very first day, I remember we went away to Craven Cottage and he scored directly from a corner. And right from then, I thought this guy is really imposing. He's athletic. He has all the qualities that are needed to be a world class centre back. He has everything. Then it's a case of consistency. It's a case of him keeping his head. Because initially in his Arsenal career, he was prone to losing the plot a bit. I remember he first got sent off against Southampton. It was where he had got booked. This was like November, December 2020, a very dark time to be an Arsenal fan then, where we were like 8 games without winning a league game. He used to lose the plot a bit. He got sent off. Even against City, he got sent off. He got wound up a bit, got the second yellow card. And initially, that was the frustration, I think, with the fan base that keep your calm, keep your head in the game, like apply yourself. Like you're way better than this. You can do better. And I think last season at the start, he had some issues where he was making some mistakes where I don't think it was a case of him lacking something which led to those errors. It was more I guess a lack of application in certain moments which cost him like small moments. But I also think by nature he's a very emotional player. So for Gabriel, it was a case of how he can marry his emotion, his passion with his ability. And I think that's been the biggest change for him since the World Cup last year. I think getting that snub and getting Bremer uh, taken to the World Cup over you must have been pretty humiliating for him, because I thought it was a very bad decision from Brazil. And Brazil, they obviously got what they deserved in the end, going out of the World Cup pretty early. Um, I think they would have been a better team defensively with Gabriel. There's no doubt about it. But I think that sparked something in him. And he came, I remember right after the World Cup, we played home against West Ham. Right from that match, he's been a completely different player. He has been the Mr. Reliable. Like, it's been what, how many games since then? It's been like, it would have been half the season to half of last season and 29 games this season. So it's been like now a run of like 48 games or something like this, right? And how many times in these 48 games you've been like, oh, Gabriel, he was poor today. He made this mistake. I cannot even think of one match where it's like, oh, Gabriel was so shaky today and could have cost us. No, he's been pretty much like faultless, to be honest. And if there's been a centre back who's actually made a few mistakes, it's Saliba. And Saliba has been phenomenal, by the way. But if there's a guy who's made a few mistakes, it's his partner. Gabriel has been completely faultless, but he never gets the flowers that he deserves. And I don't know why that is. It seems to me a bit like how it was when Matip and Van Dijk were together. Like Van Dijk's obviously the best center back in the world, but Matip was doing an incredible job next to him. But people used to just attribute Matip's being really good to Van Dijk being next to him. But I actually think no, it was Matip also holding his own and showing how good he is. And I think it's similar for us. And I actually think Gabriel is the leader in our backline. And you can see it yesterday, the way he was getting into Haaland's head during the game, after the game. He also had a bit of beef with Ivan Toney against Brentford. But he did all of this without losing the plot. I go back to a few years where we had this guy, Gabriel Paulista. I remember Diego Costa going and choke slamming Koscielny on the ground. Gabriel Paulista goes, gets wound up, and ends up getting sent off.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually used to like Arsenal centre backs being bullied, like in the last over the last decade or so. Like I'm a huge Koscielny fan. I think after Gabriel and Saliba, that he's the best centre back of the Emirates era. And he played a key role in Arsenal winning those FA Cups. But he used to get bullied. Like guys like Diego Costa used to go shove him. Let's see if there's a centre forward who can do that to Saliba and Gabriel. They won't, because look at how imposing they are. Like you cannot do it. It's a seeing them from the tunnel must be really daunting for the opposition. So Gabriel has been phenomenal. And one last thing I want to say, a lot of his football has been played with Zinchenko next to him. And Zinchenko made a lot of mistakes in recent matches, but even at times last season. A lot of times Zinchenko is not even there where a left back should be. You can say it's partly by instruction, but the fact is Gabriel has had so much ground to actually cover at times and
Yeah.
defend big spaces. I remember against Aston Villa last season, there was the situation where Leon Bailey, he was finding so much space on that right hand side. Time and again, he would find himself 1v1 against Gabriel, but Gabriel wouldn't commit. He would back off, really hold his own very well, and at the last second, sneak the ball away. Now, that is an art, and I think he's really established himself, I think, as one of the best centre backs in the Premier League. And of course, as you mentioned, Arsenal fans give him the flowers. But I think the moment we win something, that his name is also going to go globally. And yeah, hopefully Brazil will never make the mistake of leaving him out of a squad ever again.
Hopefully. I mean, as long as someone from Brazil Twitter doesn't take over that national team. I feel like every
There's
6
some
months
guy,
they
yeah, there's some guy on Twitter who has a huge agenda on
Se-
Gabriel.
Sao talks or something.
Yes,
I don't know.
yes,
I
yes,
blocked
yes,
him.
yes. That guy,
Yeah.
yes.
I feel like every 6 months he comes up with some CPU center back from the Brazilian league who's suddenly better than Gabriel. It's really funny. I mean, a lot of Brazilian fans don't rate him for some reason, which is crazy to me. I think Gabriel is a future streets won't forget kind of player, where whether or not we win anything, you know, um, in this era, right, with this current set of players, I think in 15 years' time, people are going to be like, Gabriel, between 2021 and 2025 for Arsenal, just crazy player. Um, so yeah, I do hope that's not the case. I do hope that we go on to win a bunch of trophies, all the trophies, and he gets his recognition. Excuse me, but I just think he is part of our identity, right? This physicality, this brute force athleticism that he has, this amazing commitment to defending, to bullying opposition forwards, to making us impenetrable. That's a big part of who we are as a team. And again, for all the talk of how great Saliba is going to go on to be, and I'm sure that he will, Gabriel is the cornerstone of this defense. So, I'm really happy to call him an Arsenal player, and I'm looking forward to see what he accomplishes from here.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And also, one thing I forgot to touch upon was his goal scoring exploits. Like a center back can add value in many different ways. One is obviously the defending, which is the core job of a center back. One can be how good they are on the ball. And Gabriel, I think, has shown that he's really good on the ball. In fact, he's improved a lot those long balls that he plays from the left to Martinelli. I think even against Liverpool, the goal we scored came from him playing that long ball. But I think his box domination, not just in helping us defend set pieces better, but also in the opposition's box, is a huge reason why we are such a good set piece team today. I think he is the guy that actually changed things, because in Arteta's first season, Arsenal conceded 16 goals from set plays. And the moment Gabriel came in, that number reduced to six. And the last two seasons when he was here, that number was like 8, 7. This season again, it's 6. I think it's he's played a huge part in helping Arsenal just dominate the boxes, period. And he's also scored a lot of important goals for us. I think that's a really underrated aspect of any center back, to be honest, to add value in some of these areas. And Gabriel is certainly doing that. And I hope that, he has strong performances going into the end of the season in the Champions League, and really shows the world how good he is. So fingers crossed for that.
Yep, absolutely. Um, Phenomenal player. Really is I think the prototype for what a Mikel Arteta defender is. And if we win, the Champions League or the Premier League this season, or if we win it next season or the season after that, he's going to be a big part of it. So, um, shout out to you, Gabriel. Last thing we should talk about before we put a bow on this is the fact that we have another match coming up in 2 days against Luton. The games are going to come thick and fast now. So, just before we get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on what we should do rotation wise for Luton at home, right? Because I think that's a big part of how we navigate this run in, of how we eventually, hopefully win a title. And that's also the subject of the next video that I'm going to put out on the YouTube channel, letting you know now. But um, rotation is the key here, right? And I don't think we can start a few of the players that we start against City. So, what is the team that you would go with for Luton coming to the Emirates?
I think we have to find the right balance here between rotation, but also being wary of Luton. So we need to be careful because last season I'm still a bit haunted by how against Southampton at home, Granit Xhaka got injured. We ended up throwing Fabio Vieira in after some months, and our midfield looked completely out of sorts. And it took us some time to actually get going in that game. And by the time we knew it, we were already down like 3-1. And then it was like a frantic finish to the game, which we saw us scoring 2 goals, Trossard hitting the post, and Partey sending the ball from North London to South London. So it was a frantic ending to that game. So I don't want to see any of that against Luton. I want to see a professional performance from the players. Like go out there, just get the job done. Even if it's a 2-0 win, no problem, but get the job done. And I think the team that we would go with is I think the goalkeeper stays the same. I think Zinchenko would come in for this type of game, um, because I think he would be really good against a team like this, a low block, giving us that extra option at left back. I think he would be superb in a game like this. I would keep the rest of the defense the same. I would keep Thomas Partey. I think this is a good game to integrate him, bring him into the team because I think he can offer a lot of value in midfield, playing those vertical passes. And of course, his fitness is not 100%. But I think against City, he had some rusty moments, but I still think he's showed enough that he can add value if he plays. So I would go Partey, Rice. I would stick with Odegaard, although a little tempted to play Fabio Vieira. Only thing is he's not played in many months, so I don't see the reason to play him. So I would just stick with Odegaard there. In terms of the front three, a lot will depend on the fitness, to be honest. Like, I think Saka and Martinelli, there's simply no replacement for both of these guys. Like, they have to play. Like, I find it very hard for us to like find a replacement for Martinelli, especially. But yeah, both of these guys have to play. But if it's like Saka's injured and cannot play, I would play Gabriel Jesus on the right, and I would play Martinelli on the left, and I would stick with Kai Havertz up front in a game like this. So, I mean, I would rotate if you, in essence, maybe 2 or 3 players. I think also, as you were mentioning some podcasts ago, that when you say rotate, fans think change like 6, 7 players. I don't think anyone is asking for that. It's more like 2, 3 players here and there. Can you refresh the squad, manage the workload of the players better? Because we obviously have a trip again on Saturday against Brighton. So it's like we're playing 3 games in a space of 6 days, which is pretty crazy, to be honest. So it's
Yeah.
important that we manage the workload well. And then we also have the Champions League tie. So it's stressful just to think about it. But I'm interested to see how Arteta rotates the squad, because sometimes I do wish that he used Fabio, Vieira, Smith Rowe even more than he has. But I think there's a balance between using your squad to keep players fresh versus actually winning the game and having the players you believe are the best on the pitch. So that's a challenge for any coach. And I think Arteta is going to be really challenged in this regard in the coming months ahead. So interested
Yeah.
to see how he does it. It's been a area that I think he had to improve right from the past. So yeah, let's see how we do in this regard. But how do you feel about this, Sham?
I don't know. I think Raya just needs a little bit of rest. So I'm kidding. No, I would start Raya against Luton. Um, I think I'd go Raya and then White. I'm really tempted to give Saliba a game off and replace him with Tomiyasu. Yeah, let's do that.
Tomiyasu as the centre back or right back?
The right center back. So I
Huh.
would I would go
Hmm.
Raya, White, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, Zinchenko,
Okay.
Party, Odegaard, Rice, Vieira, Jesus, Trossard.
What? That's your front three?
Yeah, not
We're
a great
so
front three.
we're
I mean, if
finished.
if if Martinelli can play, then I'd start Martinelli and then take him off after 60 minutes.
I mean, if you can, you have to play at least one of Saka or Martinelli, otherwise we're finished.
Yeah.
Like, I know people are saying
Then
Luton, but they're actually way more impressive than some of the other teams.
no,
In
then
the
probably Vieira, Jesus, Martinelli, and then just kind of make it a point to take Martinelli off at
Mhm.
60 minutes or maybe even halftime, depending on I don't know what his exact fitness status is. So I mean that's really up in the air. So if he is able to start, then start him. But obviously he's probably not going to be able to play the full game. But yeah, that's probably what I do. Just like move like a few pieces around. But obviously, what I love about this squad is you do have the players in it now where the drop in quality isn't ridiculous, right? Going from Saliba to Tomiyasu, I think you can get away with that against Luton. Obviously, the passing and the ability on the ball go down a little bit, but I think that's something I'm willing to live with against the 19th place team in the league right now. Um, Yeah, but it's just with one eye on Brighton away at home, like you said, and then after that we have Bayern Munich next week. So, those are two games especially that we're going to need the full complement for, I think. Um, so it's just a matter of, using the Luton game to ensure the result quickly and do that with an already slightly rotated squad, and then see about getting the guys like Gabriel, Rice, and Odegaard off the pitch. When you can't afford to do so later on in the game. So I think that's what I'd go with, but it's really tricky, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to talk about this, because it's a really tough thing to do, and like you talked about earlier, there's a fine line between preserving your players and jeopardizing the result, right? So that's a tightrope that Arteta has to walk for the rest of the season if he wants to be able to come away from it with some sort of major silverware. So um, I think he can do it, right? And
Mhm.
this guy has access to more information than you and I do,
Yeah.
obviously, right? So he knows how fit these players are. He knows, what he can get away with against the teams that he chooses to rotate against. It's just all about executing, and it's all about the players that he trusts getting out there on the pitch and performing as well. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have much to add there, but I just want to say that Timber, if he could somehow get completely fine soon, will be such a big boost, because he can help us solve a lot of issues with regards to rotation at the back. I think in terms of left back, we can manage as of now. But yeah, right back, if you want to rest the center back, you move White to center back, play Timber as the right back. I'm still not so comfortable as having Tomiyasu as like a right back. maybe I'm okay with him being the center back and the left back, but somehow I don't know, something about him playing as the right back. We saw last season against City at home. I'm still a bit haunted by, I think, his stiffness in certain situations. He somehow seems to be more comfortable defending on the left. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. I think excuse me, I think right back is just such a multifaceted position in Arteta's arsenal, right? I mean, you and I both know that Ben White
In
quote about
Arteta's
how
Arsenal, like literally
sorry?
Arsenal. You said in Arteta's Arsenal. So is it
Yeah,
like it's like wow, okay.
just like in his system,
It's
like
Arsenal. Yeah, yeah. It's like yeah.
just in this particular system, I think, you know, the right back, some games he's bombing up and down the flank. Some games he's just another center back. Some games he's basically playing as a winger. Some games he's inverting into midfield. So, it's such a demanding position. And I love Tomiyasu. I think he's a great player, but there's just, I can't see Tomiyasu playing as a right winger for a game, right? Ben White has shown that he can do it. Tomiyasu, I don't think is as multifaceted a player. So that's why I'd prefer just to play him at center back or, like you said, at left back in some situations. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Arteta decides to do on Wednesday, right? Very key game. Those are 3 points that we absolutely need to pick up. So whether he goes strong and says, we're going to play, 3 games in 7 days, or he tries to conserve players a bit. Yeah, it it'll be really fascinating to watch. So I think that's a good place to put a bow on it and call that an episode. So
Mhm.
thank you so much to everyone for joining us here today on this live stream. Thank you to all of you who are listening currently or watching on YouTube after the fact. We really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time just to listen to me and Sash talk about the Arsenal. We really appreciate it. So if you enjoyed the episode, please do consider following This Week in Arsenal on Twitter at This Week Arsenal. Please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, hitting that notifications bell. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do leave a 5-star review. It's really helpful for getting the pod out there to new listeners and, putting it in front of them. And you can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow Sash at LT Arsenal. And yeah, we'll be back with you probably after the Brighton game, right? Just ahead of the Bayern game. So you won't hear from us after the Luton game, unfortunately. That's just the way it is when these fixtures are happening multiple times a week. But yeah, we hope you'll join us next time. And until then, we will talk to you after wins against Luton and win against at Brighton. Until then, don't be a goon, or sorry, be a gooner. Don't be a goon, and we will talk to you soon. And I am going to go have another cup of coffee. Until then, bye bye.